Yeah, there's a bunch of people waiting on YouTube. So, okay. I have a bunch of people joining in here as well. Let me see. Okay, cool.
Oh, Sebastian has joined as a guest. Can someone promote him?
Yeah.
Let me try that.
Yeah.
There you go. We have Sebastian. Hey, Sebastian. Glad you made it.
Morning. Morning, everyone. Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning, Sebastian.
Also glad.
In fact, we've just transitioned into the afternoon, 1:12 in India, but still good morning to you.
Yeah, indeed. Sorry.
So quick introduction. Hello, everyone. This is Aditya. I'm a business analyst at ThoughtWorks. Pooja.
Hey everyone, I am Pooja Arora, business analyst ThoughtWorks, and welcome to the online edition of Converge. We are heading into the discussion on innovations and disruptions in retail.
Right. So before we introduce our panelists, let us set some information about today's discussion. Pooja.
Yeah. So this pandemic COVID thing has pushed us into a lot of unprecedented times where everything is going through a change, right? The retail and the retail industry is going through a change now. What we buy, where we buy, how we buy, when we buy is undergoing a seismic shift, right? And so this brings up a lot of questions. This brings up a lot of questions on what kind of disruptions retail is going through, how the consumer behavior is really changing. And what kind of role now the tech is playing? What lies into the future of retail? So we are going to discuss all of these aspects in this 1 hour of discussion with our industry experts. So stay tuned in, and let's hear from Aditya on their introductions.
All right. So we have Sebastian over here. His role is product owner, Metronome. Sebastian joined Metro AG, a global leader in B2B food wholesales in 1999. Starting with store operations at a local store in Leverkusen, Sebastian moved on to sales, national key account management, and later on to national strategic sales at the headquarters in Düsseldorf, where he also took over responsibility as a country representative for Metro's digital sales solution. This is where his journey with Metronome, Metro's product development and IT service company, started, where he now plays the role of a product owner for a product that helps Metro's sales force in 18 countries to acquire, grow, and retain Metro's business. Next, we have Manish Agarwal. Manish is a senior director at Falabella, India, and responsible for engineering for all retail mobile e-commerce applications and e-commerce platform for Falabella supermarket business. Over the last 21 years, he has been part of multiple technology-led transformation programs in retail vertical for multiple global clients. He has earlier worked with Target, Infosys, and GE, and co-founded 2 startups. He is passionate about connecting various aspects of customer experiences to digital experience. And lastly, we have Visalakshi, or we fondly call her Visa. Visa globally heads our retail vertical and has been in the industry for the last couple of decades. She works with different segments of retailers across the retail value chain. Her expertise lies in crafting strategic business solutions to solve problems of today and provide readiness for the ever-changing world of retail and the consumer. So welcome all the panelists. Thank you for giving up your Saturday for a quick discussion with all the participants.
Thanks, Aditya. Forward to.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So before we start the question, I would like to ask one question to Pooja. Pooja, what is that one thing that you bought right now in this time that you would have otherwise thought to be a waste of money or not necessary item back in, before Corona times?
I'm going to talk about two, not one. So I bought a robo vacuum cleaner which sweeps and mops the floor, which was a total waste of money. When few months back, my friend told me, I said, I'm never going to invest in such a thing. And now it's such a relief that I just click one button and my house is all clear. And the second thing that I'm trying to buy is a dishwasher, which is actually, there's a dearth of dishwashers in India, there's a dearth in the entire country. So the dealer who has taken the booking, he mentioned that generally they used to get one or two bookings in a month, and that one dealer has 100 bookings for a dishwasher. So you see how we are changed, how the consumer needs are changing. So these two were definitely not a thing that Indians would generally buy, right? But now these are like becoming a part of essential. I would never think my mom would ever say that I want a dishwasher, and she is talking about it now.
All right, so we're going to see some lot of mind shifts this time, and we'll hear more about it from Visa, Manish, and Sebastian. But we would like to hear it from the audience as well. So put in your comments in the chat window on what would you think that you've made some purchases which otherwise you wouldn't have done. Feel free to add your comments on the chat section, and we'll keep monitoring it. Also, there's a Q&A window, so feel free to drop in your questions. We'll try to get them answered as well with Visa, Manish, and Sebastian. All right, over to you, Pooja. Let's go start the discussion.
Okay. So meanwhile, people tell us what they have been buying in the last couple of months. I'm going to start with asking both of you, Manish and Sebastian. So you come from the industry where one is B2B and one is B2C. What are the major disruptions that you have been seeing in your particular, in your particular industry? Maybe we start with you, Manish.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here and part of the discussion. So I come from Falabella, which is a conglomerate with multiple retail businesses, from department stores to home improvement to supermarkets. So basically, we are a group of multiple retail formats, and we are seeing disruptions in all formats. Right? Format is just a one way to look at it, but the retail industry is going through the disruption across the whole value chain, from starting from a forecasting trend to procurement to how we buy this stuff to the store to the e-commerce, right? Of course, the trend is more and more going towards digital, right? But what we have to be cautious of, and we have never ever seen the e-commerce growth what we have seen in last 4 months. We have beaten, like, on normal days we crossed the cyber numbers, which was the annual event for us, saying that, hey, this is a cyber number. But now we cross that every other day. So that's the kind of a growth we are seeing in e-commerce. But because of that, the behavior is also changing, right? Now, what that forces us to look at is to look at the things in terms of when the people will come back to store, what will that mean, right? So the whole store experience and the whole phygital aspect of store, so the whole store digitization strategy is going through a change, and that's a big thing, because for us, we are not pure play e-commerce, right? And stores is our bread and butter, right? But how do you give more and more phygital experience and digitize your stores? I think that's a big disruption we are seeing in terms of how do we engage a unified customer in that. The second thing I think I would look at is also, of course, from an e-commerce, a lot on assortment, marketplace, and so on. But I think a logistics in terms of a delivery, because from a consumer perspective, that is very, very key. So logistic area is again going through a lot of disruption in terms of the type of deliveries, in terms of like, say, for an example, click and collect was very popular, right? But now click and collect is translating to drive-through experiences in our stores, and we are piloting to it, right? So it's also geography based. We are primarily based in LATAM, but we are seeing lot of a disruption there. So I'll pause here, and then probably we'll talk more on this. But I'll have Sebastian talk on this more.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, since Metro's core business is helping restaurants or selling food to restaurants, this, of course, the whole situation was a huge impact on Metro, because all over the world, restaurants actually had to pause their business more or less completely. So in some countries, delivery was, or order of delivery was still allowed. In some countries, it was completely down. So our most important customer group completely broke away, of course. This dip was in the beginning a bit compensated by a certain hoarding effect. So people started to massively buy certain things. So that in the beginning, actually, there was not a real revenue loss. But now that the hoarding has stopped and the restaurant business still is not back on its feet, really, this, of course, is a huge impact for Metro.
All right.
And I think it's all supported a lot by mobile. And to me, the mobile disruption is happening with more and more usage of mobile across use cases, right? Throughout the value chain, I think the usage and adoption of mobile is increasing drastically. We have seen at one point we were less than 5% on mobile apps. Today we see 30% business on mobile apps. We see 75% visits on our mobile web, right? So the whole pattern is changing, and disruption is handling with that in mind.
Yeah, so with us it was exactly the other way around, because the customer group that actually uses our e-commerce, as I said, had to close down. So we have stores and we do have delivery, but delivery was almost 100% only for the restaurants and the big customers, and they stopped buying. So for us, it was a clear shift away again from food distribution to cash and carry business.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Those are some of the major things happening. So, so a follow-up question to that. So, what do you think is going to be the number one way to make, you know, a substantial difference going forward?
Pooja, I missed the question. Pooja, I missed the question. Can you repeat that?
Am I audible here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I was saying that a follow-up to that, while we discussed about what kind of, you know, bigger disruptions are happening, what is the number one way that you think would make a substantial difference going forward?
Number one way in terms of technology, or in terms of?
In terms of business, in terms of retail, as yeah.
I think the biggest challenge will be to understand even the consumer behavior, right? The way the consumer behavior is changing, right? I think that will be a big way to even understand that. And that's a completely unpredictable in our mind. So I think from a technology perspective, I think we'll have to build more and more technology, which is more adaptable to the changing needs, rather than building with a mindset that, hey, this has to be in this way. All platforms and everything, probably we'll discuss more about it, but it has to be with that mindset. So to me, that's the biggest engineering change, adaptability and flexibility in the whole thing, because no one knows where the customer behavior is going.
Yeah, and I completely agree
that's
with
true.
that, Manish.
Yeah,
One of the bigger disruptions that we're seeing is actually data, right? I mean, in retail, as we normally say, historical data is what we've thrived on. And today that historical data is pretty much becoming, you know, I won't say meaningless, but it's not able to predict the right customer behavior pattern, because the customer's behavior pattern itself has changed dramatically, going back to your example, Pooja, of dishwashers and, you know, what you've been talking about. So forecasting models have gone for a toss. And then, you know, primarily, as we all know, COVID's ending up to be more of a supply chain problem, a manufacturing problem, rather than even, you know, a demand problem, right? So there are still people who can afford it. And unlike other pandemics in the past, which have actually been a demand crisis, this is more of a manufacturing and a supply crisis. You know, that we're constantly having to, you know, deal with. And I think on the other aspect of what Manish was saying, what are some of the new bets that, you know, as a retailer one can actually make? I think that's also a bit of a struggle. So you don't, and it's definitely not going to be one size fits all for any retailer. Even in a particular segment, what works for one grocery retailer may definitely not work for the other one. And that's primarily because of the life cycle maturity curve in which you are. What has been your technological investments thus far, right? How much have you invested well in foundational systems? How much have you invested in platforms? um, all of that will start coming into play now. So how much of legacy are you burdened with, and how much of that baggage are you carrying? So some of these aspects are going to probably also determine what bets can you take, how quickly can you take those bets. So I think these are also some things that probably retail organizations are thinking quite far and deep in today's world as well.
All right. So, Visa, I have a question for you now. What do you think are the consumer behaviors which are not going to change?
So I think, interestingly, we've always had this statement in retail saying that consumer is king, right? Or king or queen, or, as appropriate. I think the true meaning of that statement is going to come into play now. Uh, so early on, I think retailers did have it, as per their choice to say, oh, I can, I will do this kind of delivery, or, this is the way you will engage with me, was what a retailer was, defining. Today, with all the disruption, startups, a lot of smaller things have started to emerge, because of which I think the consumer is truly going to reign supreme. And as a retailer, you will have to probably provide for every means of engagement, and then it is probably going to be up to the consumer to choose how they want to engage with you. Yes, and most retailers that we speak to as well, do they want a new normal? Probably not. They want their old normal back, they want the regular normalcy back, but they're also well aware that whether it is different types of last mile delivery or different types of engagement inside and outside the store, everything has to be provided for, and the customer will actually choose, the consumer will actually choose how they would like to engage with you. And so that ever preparedness kind of a state, that ever ready state, is where the consumer has actually pushed, or is going to push some of the brands to kind of rethink what they're doing, and how they're doing some of these things, Aditya.
Okay. Thanks, Visa. So, Manish, a question to you. Uh, what are some of the innovations you have done to cater to the emerging consumer behavior? I'm sure you've done
I
a
think
few things that you had discussed with us. So,
yes, definitely. So Aditya, I think like as Vida said, customer expectation will never change, right? It just it's ask for more and more, right? Del mange more, right? So the options is the only way to do it. But I think the key is to start. We all talk about personalization. We all talk about personalization, but that is becoming more and more relevant in terms of today's models, where how can you give ultra personalization, right? How can you make a ultra personalization with the context of, be it a geolocation, be it of their behavior, and so on. So behavior is tough these days, right? But thing is that is becoming more and more relevant from a customer expectation perspective. So definitely from a innovation perspective, right? What is important is a transparency and trust to the customer these days. So be transparent to customer. They are looking for the whole journey of their orders, be in store or e-commerce, to be open and transparent, right? And they want more and more information, right? So we are investing a lot on, and we are a large old retailer, right? So for us, it's a huge jump we have to make in terms of the new age company, but we have to balance it, and that's where we are investing a lot in terms of loyalty. We are investing a lot in terms of personalization. We are investing a lot now. We are putting a store digitization strategy together from a consumer perspective. We are investing a lot in on-demand delivery solutions, so that you can have more and more experience, which is like I need now. Everything is becoming like that. I need now. So those are the things. And I think apart from that, from this current COVID times, right? If we see the other demand of customer from a loyalty and building a trust perspective is a social distancing. And I think one of the work we have done along with ThoughtWork was on building one quick solution, right? On how do you manage a traffic within a store so that you can manage a social distance, right? And so we call it kind of a traffic control within a store. And we are now implementing that in our 500 plus stores across LATAM, right? And that's also customer experience, that when I go there, I don't have to stand in a queue. When I go there, I know that I'm a safe because there'll be only limited number of people in the store, right? So those are the kind of work we are doing from customer experience perspective with the changing times.
Awesome. Thanks, Manish. Sebastian, for you, I'm going to flip the question. I'm going to ask you, in Metro's context, what are your customers doing differently?
Yeah, first of all, our customers have a situation that they have never faced before, right? They are now, or in most countries, they are now allowed to open again, but under extreme restrictions, and they have to abide by a gazillion rules, have to be very careful, because they don't want to lose their license, they don't want to end up in the newspaper, they don't want to put their customers at risk. So for Metro, we always try to be not a mere retailer, but we always try to be a business partner and a consultant. And this, for Metro, has become a huge focus right now, because our customers aren't experts in laws, in legal stuff. They aren't experts in coping with this kind of situation. But the cool thing is that we at Metro, we have these experts. So we are able to not only sell stuff to our customers, but also help them survive. And this is right now actually a huge focus on our side that we have to take on. So just help our customers to survive and not so much try to sell them stuff. That has changed for the moment. The learnings that we have had, of course, is, as I said before, people started hoarding. So certain products became out of stock and unavailable, and this is also something that we never faced. So I remember I went to a store and complete aisles were empty. So all the noodles, flours, all the dry food was really sold out because people hoarded. And we have to prepare for that, for a possible second wave. So next time we know what will be in high demand, and hopefully we are able to react better to them.
All right. Thanks, Sebastian. Yeah, Pooja, do you want to?
So before moving forward, Aditya, do you want to take one or two maybe audience questions? There are a couple of them.
Sure. So we have a few questions from the audience, and they're going to keep posting it. So I request Manish, Visa, and Sebastian just to have a look at those as well when you have some, if you can answer those. But I'm just going to ask one question from here. The first one is, what is the one big change you had to make as a business during COVID time?
So I think one of the biggest change I think we had to make is that how do we fulfill, because of COVID time, stores are closed across all countries. So that means more and more burden on our e-commerce and the logistics, right? And I think that's a big change we had to do, where we had to kind of convert some of our stores as a warehouse, right? We had to start some on-demand. We have to increase on-demand delivery. We experimented with curbside picking, right? But I think still one thing where we want to make a big change and we have not been so successful is because of the increasing pressure on the numbers. We have not been ready on logistics and customer service perspective, right? Where is my package, right? And we have not been able to do well on that, right? But those are the big aspects where we are making change. That how can we leverage our current assets to fulfill more and more demand which is coming from online.
Okay. And I'll ask one question to Visa. So Visa, there's a question which says luxury buying is drastically moving to essential buying, which is impacting the market. Any innovation around it where luxury products are improvised to blend in with essential products?
Right. Actually, luxury retail has, of course, dealt with COVID in a very different way. And as I said, different segments are looking at it again very differently. I think when you look at luxury brands, for them, the whole brand, the whole brand keeping is extremely critical. So that's something that they're very keen on not tarnishing, or bringing the brand value out. So when you have, let's say the Louis Vuittons or the Burberrys or the Gucci's of the world, they've all decided to take it slow. So in terms of their assortment, in terms of what they do inside of their stores, a lot of the luxury brands are actually taking it a little slow and easy, and in a way they tend to be a little bit more cash rich as well, and can afford some parts of it. They have started doing a lot of personalized selling. So right now, if you look at it, there is a lot of video selling which happens. So you don't need to go into a store, but we could actually do video selling, or there is more of communal shopping. Or for example, some retailers are actually calling in closed group of people into stores, but at a very limited capacity, by appointments, or things are actually sent to your home. I mean, things that you really like, and then of course what you don't pick, it comes back sanitized, kept aside for a few days. And so there's a lot of personal engagement. Yes, luxury sales generally has taken an impact, and it's gone down. The numbers are not as usual. But there is also another trend that we're spotting in luxury retail. Is there is this whole concept of depressive shopping when it comes to, again, shopping. So the whole psychology element of it, right? Sometimes you just want to splurge a little bit to the capacity possible for every individual, because in some way you want to feel alive, and you want to tell yourself that things are normal, or to some extent it's still normal. My life is normal, right? So you do have the money to sometimes spend, and you want to feel good about it as well. So there has been a bit of splurge in that. So in fact, when in China, I think when Hermes opened up their store, they had a record $2.5 million sale on just one day, on that Saturday, which they'd actually opened up the store, right? And this is not this is more psychological. Yes, it's not, it will not be a steady curve, but you will see some spikes on some of these things. And eventually luxury retailers also tend to have customers who are quite loyal to them over a period of time. So they will wait it out. They will not do anything to, as I said, disrupt the brand or the brand image. And of course, blending it into essentials may not really happen, because the brand itself has to hold on to its uniqueness. But yes, they are doing very innovative ways of selling, keeping in touch with consumers and customers, and trying to do a lot of those things as well. And yeah, we're also seeing some other psychological patterns in shopping as well, which is becoming extremely interesting data.
I didn't know that depressive shopping is a thing. I know the name for all the splurging I do.
Pooja, but all the history shows that this happens in all the depressions.
Yes.
In fact,
Yeah,
I was surprised. I was giving an example last time that people are upgrading to bigger TVs. It's not luxury, but like we have seen in our cyber, that the people are buying more and more bigger TVs just to satisfy themselves.
yeah. Have that feeling.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I see a couple of questions on the digital aspect. So maybe I'll go with my next question, and then we can take up additional audience question on the digital. So we have been hearing about the digital transformation for quite some time. Things are happening. Organizations are getting into that digital wave. However, this COVID has also had put an impact on that. So here, probably what we want to hear from you is a couple of examples where technology has given a dramatic positive outcome. So this is what we want to maybe share more examples and experiences here. So maybe we can start with Sebastian this time.
Yeah, so I think the big challenge or the big change that we faced with COVID is that speed mattered much more than before. Which also, since we're working at Metronome in an agile way, was a bit positive even for the acceptance of MVP solutions. So it would have been unthinkable before to really have MVPs go out to the customer. Now it is. So, for example, we really finished a click and collect application for our customers very, very quickly. It wasn't in no way a beautiful thing, but it worked. And that was exactly what we needed. We needed something that worked. The customer needed something that worked. And yes, it worked the way we did it. From a technology perspective, I don't know if you guys know, in Germany, cash is always king. So people in the past were very, very reluctant to use plastic money, as we call it, so a card or contactless payment. And also the businesses were very reluctant to accept contactless payment or card payment because of transaction fees, because of traceability, whatever. And that also is now changing drastically, and we can help our customers there as well because we have the technology for contactless payment, and we can offer our customers solutions for contactless payments so that in their restaurants they don't have to handle cash anymore, for example. Yeah, that's the experience from Metro side if it comes to digital. Much more speed, the acceptance to work with imperfect solutions at the beginning. Yeah.
Manish, do you want to share from a Falabella perspective?
I think I can give a couple of examples. So one definitely is a contactless delivery, and that became much more relevant in COVID times, where we were packing the stuff in a way which is more safe. That became very important aspect of it, and the delivery even in terms of the grocery and all that. So that became much more relevant, which is a contactless delivery. Second is definitely cashless payment, and we have not made a huge leap there, but we launched our own wallet recently, and we are trying to have a payment where it's more and more QR code based, right? So that's what we are working on. The another aspect we are working on to in the same thing is scan and go. So stores are opening up now, right? So stores are opening. So when the store opens up, we have to give some of these things where this contactless things become more and more prevalent. And so scan and go is another aspect where we are trying things in the purchase cycle within the store, right? And I think from an innovation perspective, like what Sebastian was talking about, and I spoke about that, the whole how to manage the traffic within the store. That was a big thing where we did just for a COVID. But now that thing, which was an MVP, is now becoming a foundation and a base for everything what we will do in the future in terms of our turn-around solution. Because for click and collect, there is a queue. For curbside picking, there is a queue. Right. So for every queue, right, we are translating that solution into that form and shape. So more and more innovation experiments to do that, but no one has an answer. What will click?
True. Yeah, that's there. Visa, do you want to share any examples here, being around in all the different types of clients?
Right. For sure. So I think going back to what Manish said, and I think Falabella itself is a prime example. Some of the investments that they made in some of the platforms actually helped them to try out some of this experimentation really quick and fast. And I think some of the other examples as well that we are seeing globally in terms of technology is, again, going back to Sebastian's point. I think business has always wanted things perfect. Even if one small requirement was not in place, it's not considered as a full product. But today there is that, that embracing of that less than perfect business solution, because you at least are able to, experiment. And, as I was referring to in a previous point, the most important aspect which business is struggling with today is, how do I understand this new customer shopping behavior patterns? So I need these ideas to go out. I need to understand from those ideas, or look at patterns from those ideas, which means it's absolutely fine even if something is actually rolled out quickly, and it may not be near perfect, but it starts to help to accumulate new data patterns, based on which then business probably has to take more strategic bets. So this culture of quick experimentation and innovation, as well as having stabilized technology investments, right? I think will probably emerge, for most, not just retail organizations, but probably for all organizations, where truly tech will be ahead of the game. And tech will probably start defining how business can then start utilizing the technology which is actually present. So that's also something which we are seeing even our retail clients kind of embrace, because like the way Sebastian was mentioning, we don't know what waves are going to happen in which countries when, and the sheer unpredictability of that, combined with we don't know how severe every wave is going to be. So you are going to probably get a breathing space of a recovery time between waves. And in that recovery time, retail organizations will have to quickly go out, do a few things, and get themselves ready, by the time the next wave actually ends up hitting them. And that's where the whole, technology is going to probably, technology and data is probably going to be the forerunner for a lot of these things right there.
So while we were talking about, the whole shift, how data patterns can be, how they can utilize the data patterns, the things that are emerging. So a thought came in around where, we have organizations who are not yet tech savvy. So with this whole COVID situation, they have pushed them to their boundaries. But still, there are organizations, retailers, shopkeepers that they are not really into that realm yet. So, from your perspective, what would be those few things which actually they should do immediately to cope up with the change, to cope up with all COVID perspective? So organizations that are not that technology savvy, what are the things that they can do to cope up with this sudden change?
I think one of the the biggest learnings of this COVID times, Pooja, is I think these smaller retailers, or in India typically your small grocers or kirana stores, or people who don't have, or even farmers, I think they're the ones who have probably learned to adapt much better. And I think partnerships have become key, right? So ecosystems and partnerships have become like a key to addressing where people haven't been able to, build in their own tech muscle power. They've learned to lean on, others. Um, so getting onto other platforms. So for example, the way Dunzo or a Swiggy Genie came up, or how some of these things actually quickly came up into the market, where you could actually shop from your nearby grocery stores. You had a lot of mobile selling as well, which started happening, right? So a lot of people started coming into communities and neighborhoods, and they started selling. The whole concept of farm to fork is taking a completely different meaning. In retail, we've been speaking about this forever, but unfortunately the whole cooperatives or the middlemen are something that we haven't really been able to get around to. And today there are multiple startups, especially in the whole agri-tech perspective, where the whole connection of the farmer with the end consumer is actually becoming a really big thing right now. And as I was mentioning, agri-tech, right? Data for farmers. Nobody really, especially in a place like India, it wasn't really a big thing. There wasn't huge investment in that space at all. And I think now that's really changing. So, data becoming a crucial element for a farmer is probably, some parts of the good things which has actually emerged for the technologically challenged. I think that's been a boon. And as I mentioned, startups, partnerships, monetizations, right? So like I've built a platform. Can I monetize this, right? Can I actually, sell this out? So the larger organizations are thinking in that way so that they can actually make money off their tech investments that they have done all this while as well. And then somebody else can actually take on that, and you don't have to go through the entire journey as well. So we are seeing a lot of this. There's a lot of collaboration, sharing, ecosystem, consortiums, coming together, to solve a lot of these problems. So we'll probably see that as also something which has emerged as probably a huge positive to help the technologically challenged set of organizations as well.
Okay. Wow, thanks, Visa. I'm going to take 2 more questions from audience now. So maybe Manish, you can help answer this, because you were earlier mentioning how you are trying to make the transition from a legacy retail business to taking the digital arm. As incumbents in the retail space, how are you fending off competition from digital natives, like example Amazon?
A very valid question which we ask ourselves every single day, right? And many times we say that our competition is primarily from a new age companies, right? And that's where any startup can come and disrupt and take up your market share, right? So I think one of the biggest thing we are doing is an organization. I will say, one, we are becoming more and more engineering oriented, which gives more adaptability and flexibility to us, right? To really change fast. So right now we are so bounded in each of our areas with our legacy systems that anything to do takes a lot of time. So big shift we are doing is making that technology shift. With that, what is also happening, and someone just talked about it, is also that with that the culture is changing, and that's the most important thing. That today the business is becoming more and more tech savvy. Big businesses is respecting what technologies say. Business is being part and parcel of, earlier, like as Vida said, business will say, hey, I just need this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's your problem. Today, business is being part and parcel of our technology journey, right? And that is helping us to experiment and release more and more, right? In our earlier days, we were releasing once in months. Any country rollout was taking. Now we do it in weeks, right? And that's the shift we are going through. And that to me is not just bringing cultural change, but also bringing. We are a conglomerate with multiple businesses, so now we think everything from a holistic perspective, that whatever we build, it impacts everyone, or everyone collaborates in it, right? So it's not about being one business versus another business. We build a platform which serves everyone, right? So that is giving us a speed, because then we are talking holistically, leveraging assets across business organization, and viewing customer as one unified customer for a group, rather than each business in silo. So now we are working towards that unified view of a customer as well, right? So those shifts, I think, is helping us.
Okay, thanks, Manish. So Sebastian, maybe I can ask to you on from a Metro context, what big bets is Metro taking as a B2B wholesaler? And also, you had also earlier mentioned to me that you did try to go into B2C as well for a few countries. So so what are the big bets that you're taking as Metro as an organization?
Yeah, so a constant shift to B2C is nothing that is in our scope. So what you just mentioned was a temporary measurement to help spread the customer flow over more locations. So that's why Metro stores were then opened up for B2C customers. So that not too many people were at the same store at the same time. More stores, less people per store. That was the whole concept, and it was kind of also in cooperation with the government. Bets for the future, as we said before, it's super difficult to predict anything. So we can see that Western Europe now is starting to get into the second wave. No one knows if the second wave is going to be similar to the first wave, if we have to take the same measurements as before, if the stuff that was in demand in the first wave will be in demand in the second wave. I guess the bets that are taken right now is yes, it will be the same stuff. So we're just simply trying to equip the stores with the goods up front. Because as you said before, not supply was the problem, but actually logistics. We had the stuff, but we weren't able to get it into the stores. If you talk about betting, it's really betting. It's guessing. It's total guesswork. Our data science department will try to make some sense out of it, but I'm pretty sure it's super difficult. And I actually hope, and I really seriously hope, that before data science would actually be able to make some sense out of it, we're actually returning to a much more normal stage once we have a vaccine or a treatment for that thing. So there's not going to be a old normal anymore. I'm pretty sure about that one, but I'm also hoping that we're gonna not have to continue like that for longer than, let's say, 1 year or half a year.
Okay. And a question to all the three of you, maybe you can open it up with Manish. So there are a lot of governments who are now putting more emphasis on local, making it local and sending it local over global. And considering that Metro and Falabella both have presence in multiple countries, right? And also Visa, you must be getting a lot of from different partners of ThoughtWorks, you must be getting this challenge. So how do we think about decision making in terms of local versus global in this kind of situation, with governments' priorities changing and
local versus so it's more in terms of sourcing?
No, in terms of decision making, yes. In general, what what we are selling, what we are getting in general from a retail point of view. Yes.
Sure. So I think one of the things which we have done over last few months post-COVID was holding hands of our sellers, because sellers were very, they were a combination, right? Large sellers, small and size sellers, and so on. So I think one thing we have done is holding hands, and I think financially also we kind of help them with commissions and all that, right? So that was a big thing which we did to support the local sellers across the geography. I think that was one, and I think in my mind, today's world is so globally tied together that I think you typically can't achieve anything if you just think local, right? What you have to see is that, okay, in that larger picture, how can you promote few things locally. I don't have any other examples which I can recollect at this point of time in terms of how we promoted that. But this is one big thing which we have done for sure. And this also ties to the question which was earlier, that the people who are not technology savvy. So our sellers were not technology savvy. So how do you help them by becoming more and more inclusive to our ecosystem and help them grow and help us grow?
Yeah. No, agree with that, Manish. I think today, if you really look at it, Aditya, it's primarily the supply chain which is actually mandating this more than anything else, right? So the whole strategy, irrespective of whether whether it's your assortment, or whether you're like a Metro who's present in multiple countries, or if you're present even in a single country for that matter, it's the supply chain which is mandating a lot of this decision making, right? So earlier you could actually get things across from the globe. Now we are in a situation where you don't know, when international borders can close down, when it will open. It may be open in your country, but it may not be open in another country. So there is a lot of restriction in movement, which means identifying local suppliers, local alternative assortment, all of that has actually become critical for running the business. And because I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm a grocery retailer, if I have to have this assortment, whether even from an India perspective, whether it comes from Maharashtra, and we face this as well. So things which came in from a different state, and if that state was under a bit of deluge of COVID, then the other states got impacted. So which means now states have to start figuring out what happens when, other supplier states were actually going down because of COVID. So this means that the boost in the local economy, opportunities for local entrepreneurs, to come up is going to be massive. And I mean, the classic example of that is actually home cooking, right? In apartments, we've seen the whole, thriving of home cooking and home bakers and people catering. So yes, so it's going to be extremely critical for, I think, retailers to keep their global suppliers, but at the same time it's probably going to be important for them to identify
I'm sorry. I think Visa screen is frozen. Is everyone seeing that? Yeah, I think she probably bad network connectivity. What about Sebastian? Do you have any inputs on that from a global to local strategies?
I mean, Metro is active in 25 countries all over the world, which means that we have a very, very diverse landscape of countries, not only from an assortment perspective, but also from a cultural perspective. And if it comes to COVID, also from a perspective of how seriously countries are affected and how they, if they are affected, how they react to this. So there is not one global strategy that we can apply over 25 countries, apart from the one that I already mentioned. So something that we really, really focus on in all the countries is the consultancy part. To really not only be the retailer, but be the business partner and the consultant that helps restaurants to survive, so that we still have customers post-COVID. But apart from that, as I said, in other countries, different things are in demand. In Germany, it was sanitary things and noodles. In France, it was totally different. France is much more affected because they are so a restaurant. They have such a strong restaurant market. Eastern Europe was a bit less impacted because in Eastern Europe we have a bigger focus on traders, so Kirana-like stores, and they were still open and able to sell. As I said, for 25 countries in such a diverse landscape, you can't have that one strategy apart from the helping our customers really to survive.
All right. Now I'm going to ask you all to whatever learnings we've had, whatever disruptions that we've had. I want you all to go like this last, probably a last question for us. If we have time, we'll look for something else. Since last 7 minutes, what I want you to do is like just go crazy and think about what is the future, like what does the store of the future look like for you? Like what do you imagine now with all the disruptions, with all this changes, customer behavior, trends, markets? Like what does the store of future look like for you? All right, let's open it up with Visa this time.
So I think, see, the store of the future, irrespective of whether, irrespective of COVID or non-COVID, it's been evolving over a period of time, right? And as tech starts to, gear up further and further, stores are going to start looking different, behaving a little differently, catering to different needs. Now, what those needs are, how different is it actually going to look? I think it'll be almost like time will tell. But one fundamental aspect is the store will not go away anywhere, right? There's a reason why stores have existed and they will continue to exist. But the purpose of existence, true, can start to evolve over a period of time. And whenever it's the store of the future, we always, kind of imagine it like a Hollywood movie, like where you've got a lot of AR, VR, and, XR, and, a lot of it is what, we all tend to immediately start imagining. And who knows, maybe that can be a reality, I don't know, a few years from now. But I think um, the most important aspect is we will start embracing this change in the store to satisfy needs. We will constantly recreate and repurpose stores as and when needed. And ultimately, if that means that it looks like it's out of an Inception movie, maybe, we will probably all get to even see a store like that. Everything is digital, everything is contactless. You're probably sitting at home, but you feel like you're inside the store, and you're shopping. Yes, we may eventually come to some of these aspects of it. But the most important aspect for me, Aditya, is unless and until all these concepts can scale and become economically viable, um, and large scale adoption can happen, all of these will be uh, innovation zones and stores of the future that every retailer will keep. So all of this has to scale foundationally from a technical perspective, from data, from from consumer adoption, infrastructure. All of that machinery which comes with it has to be affordable. All of this has to be production at scale. When that point starts to come in, like you have blockchain, you may have QR codes, you may have RFID tags. RFID tags at one point was super expensive, right? But today it's getting a lot cheaper, right? So it starts to make sense for you to adopt to it. So similarly, for that store of the future to become a reality, it has to become sustainable, it has to become affordable, you should be able to do it at scale. And technically, you need to have all that firepower to make that store of the future to happen. Otherwise, it's probably going to, at this point remain, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
Manish, have you given it a thought about what sort of future of Falabella would be?
So I think I agree a lot with what Lisa said. Stores are not going anywhere because to us, stores are our assets. Stores are our base, right? You can use stores in multiple ways, and how that will change is a different story. And I have seen a couple of stores which we say, oh, they're fascinating, but how much is our adoption? As a consumer, are we really ready for those fascinated stores? I don't know, right? And that also is a behavioral change in my mind, right? And to us, like, if we all remember, we have been talking about augmented reality in stores for 10 years, virtual reality in stores for 10 plus years. We have seen smart mirror proof of concepts in innovation lab wherever you go, but where is the adoption? We don't see that adoption, right? And that's the key, that today we are already seeing a queue in our stores. I think people will go, times will be back, but this evolution acceleration will happen now. In my understanding, acceleration of those will happen, but not really. I don't say that, hey, out of 500 stores, like in another year, we will see a drastic change in stores. It needs a huge investment, and I don't think there is economies of scale at this point of time on any of that.
Right. Sebastian, would you like to add a few points to it?
Yeah, I mean, everything depends on if this is what we all hope for, which is a once in a century event, or if this actually will have to become a part of our regular thinking for the future. Will there be more pandemics? People say that it might be that way or not. So that's going to be the huge question, because a lot of things that we do now are actually improvised and not really scalable, not really sustainable, but they are a super nice foundation, as we said, for building on this. So if we have the time, and if we actually come into the situation where we have the luxury situation again of not having to really dish out half-baked, not okay, that's a bit too harsh, but really have to dish out things that we wouldn't do in the normal phase, then I think the learnings that we can take from COVID here will help us a lot in the future. A simple example is what I just said. I'm very happy that I'm now able to pay everywhere contactless. That wasn't the case before. That's maybe Germany specific, but still something. For the stores themselves, if it kind of becomes normal to be prepared for a pandemic, I think what we can see here is that customers don't want human interaction anymore with store stuff, and that is actually something that needs to be watched very carefully. How will that evolve? If the customer even wants it, then the tendency might be, even be to replace stuff more and more with automatic solutions, with self-checkout. All these things will also get an acceleration right now, because the customer actually is asking for it, or doesn't want face-to-face contact with anyone right now outside of their households.
Cool. So like the three of you, whatever you mentioned, that gives relief to a lot of people that, stores are not going anywhere. A lot of small businesses are still going to be there. At least that's what we predict will be in the near future, or at least in the foreseeable future. But again, I think we are short. We are 2 minutes past our time. And we haven't been able to cover about 3 questions from audience, but I hope you all got some insights other than your questions. Thank you, Manish. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Visa, for giving your time today on a Saturday. And thank you everyone for joining in as well. Do feel free to connect with them offline on LinkedIn or something if you want to have more questions. But I hope this was useful for all of you and got some insights on what the retail industry at least is going through and what it will go through in the near future. Thank you.
This also marks the end of Converge, this event. Do share your feedback. The feedback form link is in the chat, and it's also available in the Telegram group.
Yes.
Pleasure to have you, Manish and Sebastian at ThoughtWorks, albeit virtually, and hope to see you all soon sometime in person.
Definitely.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
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 Bye.